Every storm chaser knows the moment. You spend hours forecasting the setup, you've driven hundreds of miles to your target, the sky looks primed, but nothing has fired yet. Then, suddenly on radar, you see the first tiny blip. Convective initiation is one of the most critical moments of a chase day. The storms that form during this phase will often determine which storm becomes dominant, which storms fail, and where the best severe weather potential ultimately ends up. In this episode, we're going to talk about how radar can help you detect the earliest signs of storm development, identify which storms are most likely to intensify, and avoid chasing storms that are doomed to collapse. I'm Gabriel Harbor, host of the Storm Chaser Coaching Podcast, and I'm here with lead coach Trey Greenwood. Trey, how you doing today, man?
Doing well. Convective initiation is always tricky to monitor for, so this should give some good tips for folks today to look for the first signs of a good storm.
Yeah, I have noticed just in a small sample size that the content we've put out about convective initiation on YouTube has done disproportionately well. So I think this is an area a lot of people struggle with. I think after listening to this episode, they will have a much better idea of what they should be looking for. And before we get started, I just want to remind everyone that we do have a cheat sheet for this episode. It's like the notes that we use to actually create these scripts. If you want access to that as well as all cheat sheets for all episodes of the podcast, there is a form in the description below. You can go ahead and fill it out, whether you're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, it should be there in the description, and you'll get direct access to all of that information. All right, Trey, question one. What are the earliest clues that storms might begin to initiate? And the tricky part is that it might not have anything to do with radar, at least just yet.
Yeah, it can and it can't sometimes. So, some of the signs you want to look for as far as potentially narrowing down your areas of interest might be something like a boundary. Sometimes you can see that as a fine line on radar, a little fine line of reflectivity. Sometimes you'll have to look at satellite or surface observations. Those can be favored areas for convective initiation because there's enhanced convergence at the surface along those boundaries, which can give you a better chance of getting storms to go. You also want to look sometimes for just generally bubbly, agitated cumulus. You want to see a nice cumulus field all over your area of interest. You'll start to see those cumulus, both visually and perhaps on satellite, start to get a little bit of vertical development. That is often a sign that the environment's getting ready to initiate storms. You just need a little bit of a forcing mechanism at the surface or a little bit of a short wave aloft to come through. And those are usually some good signs that a storm is about to initiate, even before any blips show up on radar.
A great place to discuss whether or not storms are about to fire is in our Discord community. It is an amazing place where both members and coaches are discussing storms. You can check it out, link in the description below. Trey, next question is, what are the blips that you just mentioned on reflectivity, and why are they important to watch during a chase day?
So blips are the first signs that you'll see on radar that a storm is developing. They're just little sort of pockmarks of reflectivity. They won't be full-fledged storms, but you'll just see little pockmarks of reflectivity going up where the storms are going up. And you can corroborate this with satellite. If you see some cumulus clouds starting to go really vertical, that can be a sign that storms are going up. And you can also use some radar products, which we'll talk about here in just a bit, to help confirm that those blips are actual storms, but those blips are just very small pockmarks of reflectivity on radar that actually show that storms are starting to produce precipitation. It can be aloft. You might not get any precipitation at the surface if you're underneath those initial updrafts that are showing up as blips, but at least the storm is starting to precipitate and starting to feel the storm scale dynamics that are going to allow it to become intense.
Now, I think I'm going to skip forward actually and do question four before I do our third question here we have in our outline, because I want to know how echotops and enhanced echotops can help diagnose which storms will become severe. Because I'm guessing if you see a lot of precipitation starting to show up on radar, it might be difficult to determine which of these little blips that I should actually be going after.
So echotops, the echotops products in general, you have echotops and then you have a new higher resolution one called enhanced echotops. Either one will work. Of course, enhanced echotops is a little bit higher resolution, but this is going to give you an estimate of how tall the cloud tops are. So basically shows the maximum height of precipitation echoes that are detected by the radar that exceed a certain threshold between 5 and 70,000 feet above radar level. So it's giving you basically an estimate of how tall the cloud tops are. And of course, as we know, taller cloud tops tend to mean more robust storms. This is a good product to use when you're looking at the first signs of convective initiation. You're seeing those blips on radar. You can even start to see some echotops readings show up on that product before you even see blips show up on radar. But as those blips are going up and starting to mature, you can look at echotops and see which ones are perhaps the most robust. And this is not always super reliable because storms intensity can fluctuate a little bit, and so can their cloud top heights. But it can give you a good proxy for which storm, which blip might be the one to that you want to target in the long run.
So let's say we found a blip that we want to target. What is it that differentiates between the blips that grow up to be big daddy supercells and the ones that end up dying out? Why do some early developing storms fail to intensify while others become dominant?
That depends. It is environmentally dependent, but generally, if you have a somewhat of a lingering cap in place, that can choke off the young updrafts, at least some of those young updrafts. Oftentimes, you need a little bit of a clustering of updrafts so they can band together and resist the cap, or another case would be lots of dry air aloft. If you have a lot of dry air aloft, that can allow the storms these young updrafts to entrain a lot of dry air, and that can kill them off pretty quickly. Sometimes you need a little bit of clustering together to resist that dry air. It just depends on the environment. A lot of times it is the cap. You're not quite ready, or maybe the forcing hasn't quite arrived yet. You're relying on some localized forcing to just get those updrafts to go, but you really need the shortwave to come through to really get those storms to blossom. So it just depends. A lot of times it is the cap. It can be some dry air aloft. And those are pretty much the main reasons why some updrafts will fail and others will start to become dominant.
You took the secondary question right out of my mouth. I was actually going to ask if the short wave moving through is a lot of times what can really help those storms that are struggling to actually become full-fledged supercells.
Yeah, we just had a setup about almost 2 weeks ago on March 5th, where there was a big setup there in the southeast Texas panhandle, southwest Oklahoma. That was the night of the Fairview, Oklahoma tornadic supercell in the northern part of the state that they surprised everybody. But most chasers were down in southwest Oklahoma, southeast Texas panhandle. And updrafts were trying to go up through the late afternoon hours, but they just couldn't quite sustain themselves. And you would keep getting these pushes and then they'd die off. And then you look at 700 millibars and you see a little bit of a shortwave coming through, but it was a little bit later, perhaps, than what was expected. Once that started to come through, then the storm started to really blossom and become mature.
Taking it back to the echotops we just talked about, what are some limitations or common mistakes that people make when using the echotops product?
Yeah, so Echo Tops is not an end all be all. It's an estimate of the cloud top heights, and it's based on an algorithm and an estimation of the precipitation intensities in that range that we talked about. But that means it does have some drawbacks. One of the main drawbacks is storms that are close to the radar. If you have a storm that's close to the radar site, the radar beam at its highest elevation angle is not going to be able to sample the precipitation echoes in the upper part of that range. Again, we said that the EchoTops products, it measures the maximum height of precipitation echoes between 5 and 70,000 feet. If your storm is close to the radar, radar beam is going to be nowhere near the top of that range. So you're going to be missing a lot of those precipitation echoes at higher levels of the atmosphere, and that can significantly underestimate the height of the cloud tops that the radar product is estimating. Also, again, it's based on an algorithm, so sometimes EchoTops cannot really compute the cloud top height at certain cases. So you always want to be careful when you're using that. Satellite is a good thing to use in conjunction with echo tops because you can really see from basically a bird's eye view of these storms and you can see them. Do they have overshooting tops? Are they starting to broaden out a little bit? Are they really bubbly? Is the cumulus really bubbly? Are we starting to get anvils, etc.? That can be a tool that you want to use in concert with echo tops to help confirm those readings.
Remember to check out those links in the description below and then watch another video.